The auctioneer's voice echoed through Sotheby's Grand Hall. Sold. The 1890 Silber and Fleming 3-story Victorian dollhouse, with original furnishings, for $12 million. Claire Morgan sat frozen in the front row, watching the gavel fall. $12 million. For one dollhouse. And she had 17 more. 6 weeks earlier, Claire pressed her forehead against the bus window, watching Chicago disappear behind her. Everything she owned fit in 2 duffel bags at her feet. 19 years old. $47 in her checking account. Nowhere to go but a storage unit in Hammond, Indiana that her aunt had apparently left her. Her phone buzzed. Mom, you made your choice. Don't come crawling back. The choice had been simple, really. Her stepfather Mark had started coming into her room at night, just sitting there, watching. When she told her mother, Mom had called her a liar, an attention seeker, a destroyer of families. He's been nothing but good to you, Mom had screamed. Get out. Get out of my house. So she had. The lawyer's letter, forwarded from her old address, sat folded in her jacket pocket. Estate of Dorothy Morgan. Storage Unit 247, Hammond Self-Storage. Paid through 2025. Contents remanded to Claire Morgan, sole heir. Aunt had died 3 months ago. Claire had found out from a Facebook post. Her family hadn't bothered telling her. They hadn't spoken since Claire turned 18 and refused to pretend Thanksgiving with Mark was normal. The storage facility smelled like motor oil and mildew. The manager, a tired woman named Sharon, led her down a concrete corridor. Unit 247. Big one. Your aunt paid for climate control, which is weird for storage, but hey, her money. Sharon unlocked the rolling door and pulled it up. Claire stepped inside and stopped. Dollhouses. Dozens of them. Covering every available surface, stacked on industrial shelving that reached the ceiling. Victorian mansions. Georgian townhouses, Tudor cottages, each one meticulously detailed, perfect miniatures of grand estates. Jesus, Sharon muttered. That's a lot of dollhouses. Claire moved closer. The nearest one was a 3-story Victorian painted butter yellow with white gingerbread trim. Through the tiny windows, she could see furniture, real furniture, not plastic. Miniature oil paintings on the walls. Rugs that looked hand-woven. A crystal chandelier the size of her thumbnail. Your aunt visited every week, Sharon said. Spent hours in here. We thought she was nuts, honestly. But she paid on time, never caused trouble. Claire picked up an envelope taped to the yellow Victorian's roof. Her name, and Aunt Dot's spidery handwriting. Claire Bear, they think I'm crazy. Your mother, your cousins. They wanted the beach house in Galveston, the stock portfolio, the real inheritance. They got it. Let them have it. You get these. The dollhouses I've collected for 40 years. Your mother called them worthless junk when I died. She laughed at you for getting stuck with Dot's garbage. Here's what she doesn't know. I didn't collect dollhouses. I collected history. Each house is authentic. Museum quality. Made by master craftsmen in the 1800s and early 1900s for the children of railroad tycoons, oil barons, European aristocracy. The families fell. The fortunes disappeared. The houses ended up in estate sales, marked as vintage toys. I bought them for hundreds, sometimes thousands. They're worth millions. Don't let them tell you what's valuable. And Claire, get away from that house. Whatever it takes. I know what Mark is. I tried to tell your mother. She chose not to listen. You deserve better. This is me trying to give it to you. Love always. End of. Claire read it twice. Her hands shook. Behind her, Sharon cleared her throat. You okay, honey? She says they're valuable. Like, actually valuable. Sharon shrugged. Might be. Might not be. I'd get them appraised before you get excited. No offense, but old ladies sometimes. She trailed off diplomatically. Claire pulled out her phone. Googled antique dollhouse appraiser. The first result was Dr. Raymond Chun, curator of decorative arts, Chicago Museum of History. She screenshot his contact info and looked around the unit. 18 dollhouses. All precisely arranged. All labeled with small brass plaques. Silber and Fleming, 1890. Moritz Gottschalk, 1895. Christian Hacker, 1878. The names meant nothing to her. But Aunt had been a librarian for 40 years. Meticulous. Obsessive about research. If she said these were valuable. Claire slept in the storage unit that night, curled on a sleeping bag between the shelves. She had nowhere else to go. The duffel bags became her pillow. Through the small window near the ceiling, she watched stars appear. Her phone buzzed. A cousin, Lindsay, heard you got Aunt Dot's dollhouse collection. Faced with tears of joy, sorry, that sucks. Mom got the Galveston place. It's worth $800,000. Another buzz. Her brother Josh. Mom says you're homeless. Good. You tore this family apart. Claire turned off her phone. She looked at the dollhouses surrounding her, silent witnesses, relics of other people's lost fortunes. In the yellow Victorian's tiny parlor, a miniature family sat frozen around a dining table. Forever safe. Forever together. She'd emailed Dr. Chun in the morning, but tonight, she let herself imagine Aunt Dot was right. That these weren't worthless toys. That somewhere in this concrete box, surrounded by someone else's childhood treasures, was the key to a different life. Outside, a train whistle blew. Inside, Claire closed her eyes and dreamed of houses. Real ones, where stepfathers didn't watch you sleep, where mothers believed their daughters, where being 19 and alone wasn't the same as being lost. Dr. Raymond Chun arrived at the storage unit on a gray Tuesday morning, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing white cotton gloves. He was 60-something, with silver hair and the careful movements of someone who handled fragile things for a living. Claire had swept the unit, arranged the dollhouses in better light, tried to look like someone who belonged. She'd slept at a truck stop the night before. The storage facility's bathroom wasn't equipped for showers. Ms. Morgan. Dr. Chun shook her hand. Thank you for sending the photographs. I'll be honest, I almost didn't come. People often overestimate the value of vintage toys. But one of your photos showed a maker's mark I haven't seen outside of museum catalogs. He approached the yellow Victorian, crouched, examined the foundation, the roof seams, the tiny brass door hinges. His expression shifted from polite interest to intense focus. May I? He gestured toward it. Of course. He lifted it with reverence, turning it to examine the back panel. Oh my God. It's signed. SNF, 1890. He looked up at Claire. Do you know what this is? The label says Silber and Fleming. Silber and Fleming made fewer than 50 dollhouses. They're considered the Faberge of dollhouse makers. Each one was custom built for specific families. Vanderbilts, Astors, European nobility. They cost more than actual houses at the time. His hands trembled slightly. There are only 12 confirmed Silber and Flemings in existence. Museums would kill for this. Where did your aunt acquire it? I don't know. Estate sales, she said. Over 40 years. Dr. Chun carefully set the Victorian down. Ms. Morgan, I need to examine all of them. And I need to bring colleagues. If what I'm seeing is real, if even half of these are authentic, you're not looking at thousands of dollars. You're looking at tens of millions. The number didn't land. Claire had been calculating in smaller amounts for too long. $17 for groceries. $9 for a shower at the truck stop. $47 total in the bank. I'll need a few days to arrange transport, Dr. Chen continued. These need climate-controlled vehicles, insurance, security. And Ms. Morgan? Don't tell anyone about this. Not yet. If you're following Claire's story, subscribe now, because what happens next will change everything. But secrets don't keep in small towns. By Friday, Sharon the storage manager had told her sister, who told her book club. Someone posted on the Hammond Facebook group. Apparently those dollhouses in Unit 247 are worth millions. Claire's mother called. First time in 4 months. Claire. Honey. I heard about Aunt Dot's dollhouses. That's wonderful news. Listen, I think we should talk about the inheritance. Legally, you're still a minor in some ways. I'm 19. And the family should make decisions together. Those dollhouses are family heirlooms. They shouldn't just be sold off. You called them garbage. Silence. Then, I never said that. Lindsay texted me. She said you laughed when you found out what I inherited. You said, Claire got stuck with Dot's worthless junk. Well, we didn't know they were valuable then. Goodbye, Ma. Claire Elizabeth Morgan. Don't you dare. Claire hung up. Blocked the number. Then blocked Lindsay, Josh, and every other family member who'd called her a liar when she needed them most. Dr. Chun returned with a team of 3 specialists and enough equipment to fill a van. They worked for 6 hours, photographing, measuring, examining every dollhouse under magnification and UV light. Claire sat on an overturned crate and watched them work. The youngest specialist, a woman named Priya, kept gasping. The Gottschalk has original wallpaper. The hacker still has the family's monogram on the silverware. Dr. Chun, this collection, it's unprecedented. At sunset, Dr. Chen pulled off his gloves and sat beside Claire. We've authenticated 12 so far. Conservative estimates put their combined value at over $200 million. The number still didn't feel real. Claire looked at her hands, calloused from the grocery store job she'd worked until last week, when she'd quit to deal with the storage unit. How is that possible? These weren't toys. They were showpieces. Status symbols. A Vanderbilt dollhouse was displayed in the family's Fifth Avenue mansion as proof of their wealth and taste. When families fell on hard times, or when children grew up, the houses were sold or forgotten. They ended up in attics, estate sales, antique shops. Your aunt knew what to look for. She built a world-class collection piece by piece. What do I do now? That's your choice. Museums will want to acquire some. Auction houses will bid for the right to sell others. Private collectors will offer huge sums. But Ms. Morgan, Claire, you need a lawyer. You need security. And you need to decide what kind of life you want to build. That night, Claire rented a motel room. A real room, with a bed and a shower and a lock on the door. She stood under hot water for 20 minutes, watching dirt and fear swirl down the drain. On the nightstand, her phone buzzed with blocked calls. Family members who'd abandoned her, suddenly interested now that she had something they wanted. She ordered pizza, ate the whole thing. Then she opened her laptop and researched lawyers who specialized in estates and auctions. Tomorrow she'd start making calls. Tonight, she let herself feel something she hadn't felt since before Mark started watching her sleep. Safe. The dollhouses were already en route to a secure facility. Dr. Chun had arranged everything: insurance, transport, climate control. Claire had signed papers she barely understood, trusting him because Aunt had trusted these objects to survive, and somehow they had. Just like Claire. The Sotheby's auction took place on a cold March afternoon, 6 months after Claire had first opened the storage unit. She sat in the front row wearing a navy dress that actually fit, her hair cut and styled by someone who knew what they were doing. Beside her sat Catherine Reeves, the lawyer who'd spent half a year untangling Aunt Dot's estate and protecting Claire from family members who'd suddenly rediscovered their affection. Lot 23, the auctioneer announced. The Christian Hacker Bavarian Castle, 1878, with original furnishings and documentation. Opening bid, $3 million. The room erupted. Paddles flew up. Phone bidders competed with collectors in the gallery. The price climbed $4,556,000. When the gavel fell at $8.2 million, Claire gripped Catherine's hand. Breathe, Catherine whispered. We have 11 more. By evening's end, 12 dollhouses had sold for a combined $127 million. After auction fees, taxes, and legal costs, Claire would walk away with $89 million. She'd kept 6 dollhouses, including the yellow Victorian, for herself. 3 more were being donated to museums, with plaques crediting Aunt Dot's collection. But the money wasn't the moment that mattered most. That came 2 weeks later, when Claire stood in the lobby of a Chicago office building, waiting for the elevator. A woman in an expensive suit rushed past, then stopped. Turned. Claire. It was Mom. Older. Thinner. Wearing the kind of designer clothes she'd always wanted but couldn't afford. Hi, Mom. They stared at each other. Finally, Mom said, I heard about the auction. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Are you? Mom's face crumpled. I was wrong. About Mark. About everything. I should have believed you. I should have protected you. And I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but I'm so sorry. Claire had imagined this moment 100 times. Imagined screaming, accusing, demanding apologies. But standing here, looking at her mother's regret, she just felt tired. I forgive you, Claire said quietly. But I don't want you in my life. What you did, choosing him over me, that broke something I can't fix. So I forgive you because holding on to anger was killing me. But we're done. Claire, please. I hope you're happy, Mom. I really do. But I'm building something new, and it doesn't include people who didn't believe me when it mattered. Claire stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, she saw her mother crying in the lobby. It hurt, but it hurt less than staying would have. Upstairs, in the office she'd rented for her new foundation, Claire's assistant Megan was hanging framed photographs. Each one showed a different dollhouse from Aunt Dot's collection. The contractor called, Megan said. The first shelter is ahead of schedule. They're thinking October for the opening. Claire smiled. The Dorothy Morton Foundation for Displaced Youth. Shelters in 6 cities, fully funded, designed to help teenagers escaping abuse. Real beds, therapy, job training, college counseling. Everything Claire had needed when she was 19 and sleeping in storage units. That's perfect. She walked to the window. Chicago spread out below, glittering in afternoon sun. Somewhere out there, a 19-year-old was making the same choice Claire had made. Choosing safety over family, truth over comfort. Maybe that kid would find the foundation. Maybe not. But the shelters would be there, ready. Her phone buzzed. Dr. Chun, the museum exhibit opens next week. Dollhouses of the Gilded Age, the Dorothy Morgan collection. You're still coming to the opening? Claire typed back, wouldn't miss it. That night, in her apartment, a real apartment, with high ceilings and a doorman and locks she controlled, Claire sat cross-legged on the floor surrounded by the 6 dollhouses she'd kept. The yellow Victorian, a Tudor cottage, a Georgian townhouse, each one a tiny perfect world. She opened the Victorian's front panel. Inside, the miniature family still sat around their dining table. Forever frozen. Forever safe. Claire had spent the last 6 months building her own version of safety. Therapy twice a week. A good lawyer. A small circle of trusted friends. The foundation. Distance from people who'd hurt her. She'd also tracked down Mark. Not to confront him. Catherine had strongly advised against that. But to fund a private investigation that had uncovered 3 other complaints from girls he'd mentored through church youth group. The evidence was now with prosecutors. Whether charges came or not, at least it was documented. At least someone had believed them. The doorbell rang. Claire checked the camera. It was Priya from Dr. Chen's team, holding takeout bags. Thai food. Priya called through the intercom. I'm bribing you to let me photograph the Tudor cottage for my dissertation. Claire buzzed her up, smiling. Priya had become a friend, one of the few people who understood what the dollhouses meant. Not just money, not just history, but proof that valuable things survive, even when they're dismissed as worthless, even when they're locked away and forgotten. They ate pad thai on Claire's couch, talking about the museum exhibit, the foundation, Priya's research. Normal things. Friend things. The kind of evening Claire had dreamed about in that storage unit, when she'd been 19 and alone and terrified. After Priya left, Claire sat at her desk and pulled out a leather journal. She'd been writing to Aunt. Letters the older woman would never read, but that helped Claire process everything. Dear Aunt, the auction brought in more money than I can process. I'm setting most of it aside for the foundation, for kids who need what I needed. But I kept enough to build a real life. An apartment where I feel safe. Therapy. Education. I'm starting college in the fall, studying social work. Mom apologized today. I forgave her, but I didn't let her back in. You would understand that. You knew that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. That loving someone doesn't mean accepting their choices. The dollhouses are in museums now, where people can see them, where kids can stand in front of these tiny perfect worlds and imagine possibilities. That's what you gave me, not just money, but the ability to imagine a life beyond survival. They thought you were crazy. They thought the dollhouses were worthless. But you were playing a longer game, building something that would matter, seeing value where others saw junk. I'm trying to do the same, to build something that lasts, to help people see that being dismissed doesn't mean being worthless. Thank you for believing I was worth saving. Thank you for the dollhouses. Thank you for teaching me that patience and knowledge and quiet determination can build empires. Love always, Claire. She closed the journal. Outside her window, Chicago glowed. Inside, the dollhouses stood silent on their shelves, witnesses to everything she'd survived and everything she'd become. Claire walked to the yellow Victorian, touched its roof gently. Through the tiny windows, she could see the family at their table, forever safe in their miniature world. She'd built her own version of that now. Not perfect, not frozen, but real, and hers, and safe. And that, Claire thought, was worth more than all the millions in the world.